Recently, YouTube reiterated their community guidelines to everyone, and the censorship-crying drama queens of the internet have already begun working themselves up into a frothy mob at the prospect that YouTube is going to make them all talk about sunshine and clouds. Now, everyone who actually read these guidelines and understood them is probably having a right fun laugh at these dipshits working themselves up into a lather over literally nothing. Fact is, unless you're one of the racism-spewing tools on the H-bomb censorship add-on, you don't have much to worry about. Okay? Okay, good, okay. Now let's talk about how your opinions suck. Stranger Than Fanfiction is a fucking terrible episode. Its pacing is terrible, its characters are awful, and its theme is a bloody mess. The whole thing comes down to one problem. Too much of the episode is spent listening to Rainbow and Quibblepants bickering about nothing. I'm guessing the attempt here was to highlight the concept of a broken base within a fandom. If that was the attempt, then it was a complete failure because Quibble lives up to his name by quibbling the entire episode, constantly whining about things being unrealistic, using god-awful buzzwords like sellout and dumb down and throwback to the medium, and Rainbow constantly needing to prove him wrong because apparently Rainbow doesn't have a life. I kinda get that part. Rainbow's job is military service in a country that tries very hard to avoid war, so it's a job that's basically asking for boredom. But listening to these two bicker for about 70% of the episode is nothing short of exhausting, and Rainbow and Quibble arguing is the episode's version of a musical number. It pads out the time because there wasn't enough story. I get that some fans are so damn bitchy and hostile that they can act like this. I myself have been on the receiving end of people like Quibblepants a lot, and maybe that's why I don't care much for the discourse between them. But even if it represents two fans actually bickering like children, it's not a very compelling thing to watch. Then we get to the end where Quibble finally elaborates on what the hell he's talking about, and it genuinely made me angry. Quibble explains that he preferred the older Daring Do books that focused on puzzle solving, while the later books focused more on action set pieces. And the reason I was angry was because if they opened with that, this could have been a really interesting episode. What Quibble talks about at the end of the episode is a massive shift in tone and genre of a book series. Things that will rightfully break the base. Being unrealistic is a bullshit whining complaint from a perpetual sourpuss, but an actual shift in tone to a completely different genre is a valid complaint to have. More to the point, if they had opened with that, then we would have gotten more interesting discussions than just nuh-uh, yaha for 20 straight minutes. Because contrary to his name, this is not a quibble. Silverquill complaining about Twilight's title based on a small flavor moment is a quibble. Firebrand complaining about how the military of a peacekeeping nation doesn't accurately reflect the military of a warmongering nation is a quibble, and also strangely narcissistic. Voice of Reason complaining about the main six in Mare-Duel being hypocritical is a quibble. Everyone who got salty in their butt because Celestia and Luna don't know what sex is was a quibble. Complaints about the overall thematic elements of a series are the very opposite of a quibble, and I'm curious as to exactly why the entire nucleus of Quibblepants' complaints about the series were completely left unexplained. Or even how. How is it possible to build an entire character around the idea that he hates the changes made to a series of books and not explains why he hates them until the last few seconds of the episode? I mean, what the fuck? That is a pacing nightmare, and it didn't need to be this way. Considering the lesson amounts to both of them learning to respect each other's differences in taste, the whole episode would have been better served if that difference of taste had actually been apparent. If Quibble hadn't wasted the entire episode essentially refusing to explain himself, we might have had something more interesting and thought-provoking. I know a lot of bronies love this episode because, hey, it's talking about the fandom, it's referencing conventions, lol body pillows, but a lot of bronies also hate 28 Pranks Later because Rainbow Dash is behaving like Rainbow Dash, instead of the idolized version of Rainbow Dash they like to pretend exists. But as we've explained over the last 50 episodes of this show, a lot of bronies aren't particularly observant. This could have been one of the best episodes of the season if this one scene was put at the front instead of dragging behind so dangerously close to the credits. I know some people are gonna harp on that the lesson was about respecting a difference of opinion, but a different opinion should only be respected if the person expressing it can be bothered to think it through and express it thoroughly. If you're just opening your mouth and exhaling a lot of nothing, as Quibble does throughout most of the episode, then your opinion doesn't deserve respect. Why should anyone else respect your opinion when you don't respect your own opinion enough to put any effort into it? Quibble's remarks about the change in tone and theme toward the end deserves respect, but his early verbal diarrhea does not. I could sit here and write out a 2,000-word essay on why Gauntlet of Fire is an amazing episode with a wonderfully profound theme about the harms of overwhelmingly toxic masculinity, and someone else could walk in and say Gauntlet of Fire is good because Ember is a sun-dried tomato, and by the magic of the internet's cognitive dissonance, both those opinions are considered to be 100% equal, and that's bullshit. That's not an opinion I would ever respect, even though the conclusion that Gauntlet of Fire is good is something I agree with. This is why your math teacher gets you to show your work and not just write the answer, because you could have gotten the right answer by sheer accident as far as they know. They could have done something really cool with Stranger Than Fanfiction by presenting an actual broken base that cannot be resolved because of the inherent difference of opinion, but for some reason, I assume it to be DHX's laziness, they just couldn't be bothered. You can have whatever reasons you want for liking or disliking an episode, but if you're gonna share that opinion, you're opening it up to scrutiny, especially if you want to offer a dissenting opinion to someone who does this professionally. There's a lot of talk going around that Quibble is a reference to analysts, but I don't buy that. Analysts, even the bad ones, tend to think their opinions through far more thoroughly. Silverquill might take a single flavor moment and use that to soapbox about how the princess title is bad, but it's not a poorly thought out opinion. In fact, it's a very well thought out opinion. It's just that he's nitpicking. By contrast, Quibble Pants throughout most of the episode is more reminiscent of the people who were screeching Mary Sue the minute Twilight became an alicorn, or accusing Hasbro of executive meddling, an opinion that deserves a fuck off rather than an entire script refuting it. I'm often accused of not respecting other opinions because I have an entire series dedicated to telling people that they're wrong, and I'm not particularly gentle about it. But if you stop and think for a minute, if I'm taking the time to entertain your opinion and come up with a lot of reasons why it's wrong, and then spend hours creating the video that tells you why it's wrong, clearly that means I respected your opinion enough to consider it worth refuting in the first place. Whereas I simply could have told you to fuck off and booted up World of Warcraft for a few hours instead. Like seriously, Legion's out, it's great, and I'm sitting here talking to you rather than playing it.